On recording last week, so Andrew's back and is going to be on with me going forward. As a reminder, Andrew's the president of Narwhal Capital, based in Marietta, Georgia, and a portfolio manager. And if you missed the episode last week, clearly you're not aware that Andrew's attendance by himself increased traffic to the channel by 10%. So even my wife said the videos are better when it's not just you on it, and you can't get that kind of honesty everywhere. So, Andrew, thanks for lifting your money this week.
That was a really polite way of your wife saying that I'm just a lot better at this.
It was
Yeah.
definitely very, very diplomatic, but the message was clear. I called you, tried to renegotiate the contract, have you come on more than once, and you were very, very willing. So Andrew, you guys, talking a little bit about Narwhal, active portfolio management, stock selection, customized portfolio, active bond management. So what I wanted to chat with you about, because that's different than us, we're asset allocating is, you can kind of recap the market and say it was a pretty flat week across the board. I mean, the stocks hit a high briefly on Wednesday before pulling back a tiny bit, but essentially, large cap through the S&P, small cap, global stocks, all fairly flat. The 10-year yield didn't move much either. The Fed met and didn't really say much. So, this is shaping up to be a great episode so far. But one thing that did happen is three of the Mag 7 reported, and you guys digest those reports. They're curious. I'm curious on those because they're such huge piece of the S&P, which has become concentrated. And I'm always waiting for signs that maybe the market is getting disappointed with their growth trajectory. So, as you looked at this market week, was it kind of as boring as I portray? And then what did you think of those individual names that reported?
Yeah, I would say for us, I wish it was a little more boring. The reality is for us, earnings season is a real grind. And I'm saying that from the standpoint of having the luxury of not being the lead analyst in charge of covering any of these specific companies. We've got a team here that kind of divvies that up. But it's busy and it's hard to quantify. I usually try, for me, earnings week usually means, those periods where all these earnings reports cluster. For me, it's like I try to buy an extra lunch every week for the office. It's hard to really take a lot of credit for the load that my team's carrying.
Yep.
But it's choppy, and it does lead to takeaways. We do a call every day, which I know you plugged last week, but the morning market briefing. An observation, this morning is when you have Microsoft down 10%, but the market really rallying around it, it raises a question you raised last week, which is, are we seeing a broadening out of the market, which, as we said last week, I would root for. The other theme, though, that we're really keeping an eye on is just cash that's been on the sideline. Are we just seeing cash come into play? So when we think about these companies, one theme that is starting to emerge for us, some of these larger tech companies, thinking specifically of Microsoft, I'm curious to see Amazon's report next week. Some of these that are really seeing massive backlog expansion driven specifically by deals with OpenAI, the market is writing those off. And that was not a theme that was necessarily present a couple quarters ago. So that certainly seems to be a concern. The idea being that OpenAI is really kind of conducting this massive circular financing where they're raising money from companies that they're ultimately going to pay for products and services. That's something that certainly has come to the forefront that may not show up in market headlines. Microsoft being down double digits yesterday, I think a large part of that was really the questions about the backlog. The more backlogs expand tied to really one customer, the more concern I think there is about that whole ecosystem. On the other hand, the Apple report, Apple stock down just a little bit today, I actually thought was really, really strong. We saw iPhone cycles coming through uh, up about 23%. The super upgrade cycle that everybody's been looking for the iPhone is usually in the 25% range. 23 is pretty close, and they really were light on inventory, and we're seeing margins expand. So Apple, I think, great quarter, not really down much, but we would argue we're probably more bullish on Apple than we were when the week started. Microsoft down 10%. Counterpoint to that is, hey, it's at a really, really low valuation. Meta had a nice day yesterday. They're pretty isolated from the OpenAI stuff. So you do get different stories emerging, even with three massively covered companies.
So these are almost like Microsoft specific issues because you didn't see it in Apple, you didn't see it in Meta. We
Right.
don't know yet Alphabet or Amazon where they'll be. And is that new that the market is kind of differentiating between these AI tech behemoths, or has that been what's been happening and I've just started noticing it?
It's been happening, and I think maybe Meta is the best example of this. A quarter ago, Meta was written off and really discounted for the fact that they really weren't on the same train as everybody else. This quarter they benefited from the idea that, hey, capex is going through the roof, which they said a quarter ago and they got punished for. But now capital expenditures, once again, a massive number, and the market is saying, okay, well, there's some nuance to this. At least they're not levered to the same providers as everyone else.
Okay.
So the theme has been there. What's maybe changed there is the sentiment. But we mentioned the OpenAI thing. I mean, reports came out today that Amazon's looking at investing another $50 billion in OpenAI, which for us, if we're looking at the market reaction just this week, which surely decision makers at Amazon are, uh, it seems like they're writing their own future in terms of market reaction to their earnings next week. We own a ton of Amazon stock. We're not getting out of Amazon stock because of this. I think much of this is an overreaction, but I would be very surprised if Amazon's up on earnings next week.
Got it. All right. So I appreciate that overview and you know the other thing that happened well this morning, we're recording Friday morning, is that President Trump named his replacement for Powell. I mentioned that the Fed meeting was fairly uneventful. They held interest rates steady. Um, Maybe starting there, the statement to me read like they think the economy is expanding, they wish the labor market was better, and that inflation was a bit lower, so that not cutting more is a neutral stance. And then immediately the president's statement was very much less ambiguous. He called Powell a moron. But this decision wasn't surprising. Was it like the Wednesday decision by the Fed?
No, not at all. I mean, I tried to posit to our director of fixed income here, what could reasonably happen that would be a surprise, and he couldn't come up with anything. Anything other than what happened would have been a completely unreasonable expectation.
Yeah. So, how about the Warsh pick? It sounded like he had been in contention all along. He's on the Fed board now. It seems like early reactions are that the market is ratifying this vote. Maybe not through stock market performance, but precious metals pulling back a little bit. Maybe people are just reading too much into things. But Warsh, what's the grade on that pick?
Uh, I'd put it as a solid B. I mean, the reality is we kind of had four candidates that were pretty well telegraphed. I think everybody was waiting on another shoe to drop and have some kind of Trumpian surprise candidate come into the mix. That never really happened. I think that my personal analysis is that Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, is probably going to get too much. He's probably getting too much credit for the selection of this. I think Bessent largely did not want to be put on an island by picking a Fed chair that might misplease the president. And so I think it was much more of a less of an advise and consult role for Scott Bessent and really just a consultation role. I think with Warsh, you're getting a guy that's got some experience. Was on the board during the financial crisis. You're getting a guy that I don't think the market necessarily loves. I think the market would have loved Doug Reeder. Um,
Rick Reeder.
yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Rick Reeder.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, Warsh is fine. I don't think he's going to be one that's going to be real quick to win over fellow fellow Fed governors. I think he's going to have, that's going to be a little bit of a battle. But I don't know that that's a bad thing at all.
You guys talked a little bit on that morning market briefing about gold. I would say more than a little bit. Your colleague Ben gave a pretty good overview of, the reasons to invest in it because you've been getting more questions about it. And I just wanted to ask you, crypto. You guys don't do crypto. We don't do crypto. Bitcoin's down about 35%, and gold has moved up and it's pulled back recently. Anything there noteworthy to you, or do you tend to kind of ignore those quote unquote investment types or asset classes?
I pay more attention to gold because it is at least a proven store of value. Where I would argue, and I think you may agree, that cryptocurrencies really aren't. The fluctuations that they can create so quickly. Um, I think with gold, really the trade on gold, it's probably passed us by. And I think obviously it's making headlines, and understandably, in my experience, and no disrespect to clients or to people out in the community that I talk to, usually when something is making a headline or raising a lot of questions from the general public for the first time in a while, it's usually because its price is just really high.
Yeah.
Um, which you've probably never heard this before, Sammy, but I like to buy low and sell high,
I
not
had
buy
not heard
high.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
that's kind of
amazing.
a trademark Andrew Hall right there.
I can't believe you're sharing that with your
Yeah,
competitors so
I
just
know,
so
I know.
willingly. Yeah.
We might have to edit that out.
Well, yeah, to me, crypto, Bitcoin, I guess specifically, I can't, I've always thought it was garbage, but I can't really figure out when it's supposed to perform well and when it's not. You would think if people were concerned about the things that have put them into gold, then crypto would have been going up. But then again, it was trading kind of speculatively along with the Mag 7 names,
Yep.
and now it's not. It's disconnected from them. It's down 35% while the market's up, while gold's up. I just don't really get how people can figure out a price. And I would say the most charitable thing I could say about gold and crypto is if you want to own them, own a little bit and hold it forever. That's
Yep.
it. It's not, I'm getting in, I'm getting out, because you'll get frustrated. But if you really think you need to have a little bit in there, make it a little bit and just make it a permanent position, because you're not going to be able to model out or predict
No.
any kind of scenarios when they'll do well.
I think that's the right approach, and very similar to what we advise clients on. I mean,
Yeah.
you basically had a decade where gold didn't go anywhere, and now all of a sudden it's all anybody can talk about. And if you look at the returns over the last 10 years, now it looks really good just because of what it's done over the last year or so. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. Bitcoin, the safe haven aspect of it has just never come to fruition. I mean, it was down 65% in 2022. It was a horrible year for stocks and bonds. It was a way worse year for crypto.
Yeah. Is there any price where you personally would be attracted to Bitcoin?
No,
No.
no.
Yeah. I'm the same way. So
I'd rather buy baseball cards.
interesting. Okay. I'm
Uh,
I lost
The
my base.
broader sports card collecting index actually fairly closely follows the cryptocurrency move. The difference is baseball cards are cool, and I can show you a cool baseball card. But if I tell you about my Bitcoin, I'm a real loser.
Yes, your blockchain story will not be that interesting. Um, well, both our firms also do financial planning for clients. And one thing I was chatting to a personal injury attorney, actually, a friend of mine last week about was auto insurance coverage rates have gone up dramatically over the last few years, and people have always been uninsured or underinsured, but we're seeing more of that with the cost of auto insurance going up. And we just had this conversation where he reminded me, from your own personal liability protection standpoint, make sure on your own auto coverage you have enough uninsured coverage, which will basically protect you if you're in an accident with somebody who doesn't have insurance, or underinsured coverage, which will basically protect you if you don't have if you have an accident with somebody who doesn't have enough coverage to help you out. And you need to go into those policies, look at your limits. I mean, they can be up to 250 and 500,000. And make sure that in over the years, to kind of save on costs, you didn't drop those down or somebody didn't drop them down for you. And then obviously, if you're still concerned about it, consider an umbrella policy to provide kind of liability protection over and above that. But I thought that was interesting because this is the guy who theoretically would be in a lawsuit trying to extract value from those policies. And he had just felt like there's too many drivers around there, not enough coverage, and high net worth individuals really need to pause and look at their own policies and maybe up them. And he thought now was a good time to do it, which I wanted to pass on.
That's great intel. And I think we've seen so much fragmentation in the insurance market in general. I've got a good buddy who's an insurance agent as well. We had, I don't know if you guys ever get this, but we had some ice come through last weekend.
Yeah.
But he doesn't write any business in the state of Mississippi, but he said they put a binding freeze on there. No new policies out of fear of the ice. And it's gotten really interesting. We have many clients with homes in Florida, and the challenges they're facing on home insurance
Yeah.
is staggering. And I think a lot of people are so focused on that and focused on commercial liability if they're a business owner that they're probably just overlooking their personal automobiles.
Yeah. So if there's one thing to do coming out of this week's episode is maybe spend 10 minutes looking at your coverage amounts over the weekend and seeing if they're where they need to be. So interesting. You came on last week. You gave the Patriots good luck. We're going to the Super Bowl. One of your colleagues is a Seahawks fan.
Yep,
So I guess I'm sure he's going to watch this video later, but I need to know, I'm putting you on the spot. Who are you rooting for?
man. It's tough because Ben is a diehard Seahawks fan. And the best thing is when Ben gets really excited about sports. Like he's buying a new TV for the game.
So this is your way
Um,
of putting me down very gently.
well, the best thing about Ben is when he gets really excited about a sport. And there's also quite a bit of enjoyment when the letdown comes. So I'm really torn because I don't want to hurt Ben's feelings, but I know he will listen to this. And I think he should get the TV. And I think he should watch the game. But his analysis will be maybe we get him on the call next week to give
We,
a thorough breakdown of the game. I just have a hard time really believing in Sam Darnold still, despite everything that's transpired this year. It's just insane to me that if you look at the quarterbacks of that class, that he's the first one to go to the Super Bowl.
I do think a short Super Bowl preview with Ben would be tremendous. Are you going to watch the game at his place then with this new TV? Is that why you're pumping it up?
No, no, probably I'll probably watch it at my house, but I'll I'll try to get some. Maybe we can get his wife to send us some footage of Ben watching the game.
All right. Well, we'll leave on that note. Andrew, thank you very much. Check him out at Narwhal Capital and the Morning Market Briefing podcast. It's easier to say the first two times.
Yep.
But thanks a lot, buddy. All right. Thanks to my buddy Andrew Hall. And as a reminder, check him out at Narwhal Capital, the Morning Market Briefing, wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Please check out the bostonadvisor.com, my blog, for original content, a Wednesday reading list with book recommendations, things to do in Boston. And as always, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, help us with the traffic. Really appreciate it. Have a great weekend.